How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the AnKing YouTube channel. My name is Blake. I'm one of the co-founders of the AnKing project, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. For anyone wondering where Nick is, don't worry, he's going to be back. He's just a little bit busy in residency, and his wife just had a new baby. So he just asked if I'd step in for a little bit so we can continue to give you guys helpful content. Today, I want to tell you guys about an app that I'm really excited about. It's called Consensus. This app is an artificial intelligence search engine, but it's not just like ChatGPT. The difference here is that Consensus will take your questions and then reference over 200 million research papers and then give you a summary to answer your question based on what the current literature and research field is saying about that topic. Personally, I have really enjoyed using this app so far. I wouldn't recommend it to you guys if I didn't think it was useful. I'm going to tell you guys about how to use it, how I think it can be useful in the clinical environment, and how it might be a useful tool for those of you who are interested in doing research throughout your medical careers. Now, before we really dive into what Consensus has to offer, I want to make you guys an offer first. We're going to be giving away premium subscriptions to the Consensus sometime in this video. So just pay attention to learn how to enter that giveaway, and then make sure you follow us on social media so we can announce that as well. All right, let me show you how this works. You're going to open a web browser and you're going to go to consensus.app or just Google Consensus AI. Once you have an account and you're logged in, you'll find yourself here at the home page. You'll find that there is a search bar right here. If you click on this, it's automatically going to give you some fun suggestions for you guys to get started to figure out how to use this app. For purposes of our video, let's use a different question. Is spaced repetition an effective study strategy? Later on, I'll tell you what the synthesize and the copilot toggles here mean, but let's just go ahead and hit enter. Sometimes it can take a little bit to load, and that's because it's analyzing so many research papers and trying to find the top 10 or 20 that are the most useful to help find answers. So right here at the top, you're going to see that there's the summary. The summary is what the artificial intelligence has gathered from the papers analyzed. Right here it says it analyzed 10 different papers, and it will tell you the quickest response to what your question was. So here we find that yes, spaced repetition is an effective strategy. The other thing that you find here at the top is the consensus meter. I love this feature. Anytime you ask a yes/no type question, this consensus meter will be activated. It will tell you how many papers that it analyzed, and it will go through those papers and try to see, was this a correlation or not, or maybe it's a possibly. I think this is a really fun feature, and it helps you identify where maybe some gaps in the literature might be. It also helps you understand why there may be some controversial papers out there as well. Below those two things, you're going to find the copilot. This is a really fun feature. It's as if you hired ChatGPT to be your personal research assistant. Chat will go through and analyze all of those key papers and then give you an introduction, all the key information that you need in nice bullet points, and it will give you a conclusion that really synthesizes all that information. Now, you can also see that within each of these bullet points, you also have the references for the articles so that you can quickly find that information. You can either click on these, or if you just keep scrolling, you're going to find all of those resources detailed out below. You can see that the titles are listed as well as they're numbered here in the top right, which will correlate with what the copilot analysis had labeled them. In addition, you're going to get a little indicator here that tells you, was this considered a yes, a possibly, or a no when you were looking at the consensus meter. You can also filter right here, and if you just want to see those possibly articles, you can go and scroll back down and only see the ones that are considered in that category. When reviewing these resources, there are a lot of helpful tools here. So you get the title, you get what journal it came from, the authors, and then how many times this paper has been cited, as well as the year it was published. Additionally, this box is an AI-generated summary of what that paper is about. Additionally, there are these badges, and I love these things. They tell you whether or not this is an impactful study. So it tells you, was it an observational study, a randomized controlled trial, was it highly cited? This helps you start to digest, was this useful and can I generalize this? It's just the beginning though. Additional tools are here in the study snapshot. You can find what kind of population the study targeted, what the sample size was, what research methods were involved, and then also what were those key outcomes that they were measuring. These are all very useful things that you need to have, especially if you're joining a journal club or anything like that. If these sources are being very useful for you and you want to save them for later, you can either come up here to export this whole list, and you can choose a .ris or .csv file, or you can use the inherent folder system within Consensus by using this saved button right here. You click on that and you can see I already saved this into one of my favorites. You can click on to add it to whatever one of these lists that you create and be able to find that later. The way you do that is you come over here under the sidebar, you click on this bookmark, and you'll find all of your lists right here. So you can click on my favorites and find the articles that you've saved right here. Additionally, you can quickly get a citation. You can get all the different formats that you're going to want, and it will auto adjust them. You just copy the text and you can go paste that wherever you need it. And then if you need to share this, say you're involved with a journal club, you need to share this article with everybody involved, you can come here, you can include the key takeaways from the study that was generated by the AI. You can just copy the link or just the text. You can even share it through X, or formerly known as Twitter. Now, as we navigate back to our original list of sources here, if you keep scrolling down, you will also find related searches. This is a useful tool because sometimes when you're writing your own question, maybe you're adding too little information or adding too much information, or it's too narrow of a question, and it's going to be really hard to find articles that help answer that for you. So sometimes these related searches help you understand what's a better way of maybe asking that question. Now let's talk about some real-life clinical applications of Consensus AI. I think one of the main things that a lot of you guys are going to be able to use this for is to help improve your assessment and plan. I think one of the things that differentiates a student who can honor a rotation versus just pass is a student who can back up what they're recommending through research. So if you are saying that you want to recommend a patient to get radiation after they've had a surgical resection of their breast cancer, you should be prepared to say why you feel confident with that answer. If you come here into Consensus and you see something like 100% yes, that this is an indicated thing that you should be doing, and you can always cross-reference this with UpToDate or AMBOSS or some of those other resources that are highly recommended, you're going to be able to have a lot more confidence when you go into proposing that as an aspect of the clinical care for that patient. Another way Consensus might be helpful in the clinical environment is when you get asked those really hard PIMP questions. Say you're in rounds, or you were in the middle of a surgery and the surgeon or senior resident leans over and asks you something like, what is protamine sulfate derived from? And your mind goes blank. You can't think of a single AnKing card or a practice question that would have taught you that information. And sometimes it's just kind of out there from left field. Speaking of which, if any of you know what protamine sulfate is derived from, go ahead, write it down in the comments. I think one of the most useful things that Consensus offers, especially for medical students in the clinical environment, is to make sure that you have more meaningful interactions with your clinical team. For example, let's say you're on your OB-GYN rotation and you you've heard about breech birth and you don't know, is it necessarily safe or dangerous? It's kind of a controversial topic depending on who you talk to. Instead of going into a conversation just asking yes or no, is this safe to do? You could come in here first, ask this question, and you're going to be able to see what is the literature saying about this first. So now, for example, you can see this is kind of a split field. Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. So maybe it would be good to go through all these things in the Copilot to understand a little bit about what the studies were about, and then maybe go look and see what the studies that said no, that this was a risky thing to do, versus the ones that said yes, this is okay to do. And when you come back to your clinical team, instead of just asking, hey, is this safe? You can then say, hey, I have read some controversial things about a vaginal breech birth in a healthy individual. I am curious to know, based on your experience, how have you seen this play out? Is it more like these papers that say these are safe? Or have you noticed that there's some other complications that aren't being measured in these studies that might alter that when you're trying to make a decision for a patient in the type of care that they're going to get? I think that is a much more worthwhile conversation. It's going to help you shine as a medical student, and I think it's going to help you solidify that information and to really internalize, how to make a judgment call based on clinical research. And it all starts from doing a little bit of homework on your own. And Consensus AI gets you started with all of that. In terms of helping you get started, I think Consensus does exactly that. It helps you get started answering a question and mitigates a lot of that research time that you would have been spent trying to sift through dozens of different articles to figure out if it even is relevant to the research question you have. I want to tell you a story. It's revolved around this question right here. Is it better to revascularize a cold limb before or after a distal amputation? We had a patient who had really bad gangrenous infection of her toes. She also had a femoral or popliteal occlusion that was blocking her blood supply. And normally we can revascularize and do a toe amp pretty close in proximity. And at some hospitals, there's a podiatry team that will do the amputation while vascular will go in and do the revascularization part. And so we were trying to figure out what's the best method. Are we more worried about the infection spreading and this person becoming septic, or are we more worried about if that amputation is going to be able to heal if it doesn't have the blood supply right away? So I was tasked with the job to go through all of the research I could find, and it took over my entire lunch hour that I had. And guess what? Here, Consensus was able to do all the work I did in about an hour in just a couple of seconds. I found these exact same 5 articles when I was finding this information, and I had to read them all, figure out what they were trying to say, and then give essentially this little summary and some of these key points in the Copilot to my team. I could have done that all in just a couple of minutes right here, and it would have allowed me to have a lunch instead of spending that whole time researching. So I really think this is a valuable tool, and it will allow you to get more involved and immersed in the research and to start seeing it play out in clinical practice. I think I mentioned earlier that Consensus could help you prepare for journal club or other events like grand rounds. If you know that you're going to be discussing something, say carotid endarterectomies, this is a really useful tip that you can do. Come in here and write a literature review on carotid endarterectomy. Instead of giving you just an answer to a question, Consensus will go and review all of those papers for you and it will kind of automatically turn off the synthesize button because you're not asking a question. You're mainly trying to get the background on everything. So your co-pilot here will go through and literally review all of those key landmark papers and give you very easily digestible summary of everything that you're going to need to know. Like, I can bet money it's going to talk about the NASA trial or ACAS and some of these other really important trials. And it will make you shine as a medical student if you know what these things are and what the key findings are, and if you can engage in that discussion. So I think this is super useful. It's also going to give you all the references so you can go and maybe print those and have them available before you go into that discussion. Now, sometimes research is just really hard to read. It gets boring, it's all very formal. So say you need to shake things up to help you really kind of commit something to memory. You could do this same search, but then say, in the style of Snoop Dogg. And since this is a ChatGPT based search function, it can take all that information here and write it in a really kind of hilarious way. So pick a character, you can make this happen and it might be able to work for you. You could also write it in song format, haikus. You could make it a short story, anything like that. So if you're struggling to remember something, maybe shift up the way that you are asking Consensus to present that information, and you might be able to retain it a little bit better. If we come back to that literature review on carotid endarterectomy, I want to show you something else that you can do. When you look at these resources, you can click on these, and it's going to open up a new tab for you, and it's going to give you the abstract for that paper. It's going to give you all that same information about how many citations and how influential it was. It's going to give you the same badges to show you this is a random controlled trial. It had a large human trial, it's highly cited. These are all those useful things, along with the study snapshot to tell you that this is a very influential paper. Additionally, you can come look down here and evaluate what kind of journal was this. Say you weren't familiar with the New England Journal of Medicine, you can look at these quartiles. This one is in that Q1. This is a highly competitive journal to get into. It has very strict requirements to be able to publish data, and it has a very large impact value. So this is just another way that you could go evaluate this article and see, is it useful? Is it generalizable? Was it a good study? And that's the kind of information that you're going to start basing your clinical decision making off of. The last clinical correlation that I have with Consensus is that it will help our patients and families to be more involved in decision making. If you've ever started researching using Google Scholar, trying to look through PubMed or UpToDate even, sometimes it's really confusing. There's lots of paywalls. If you haven't been trained in how to digest medical literature, it can be really confusing, and you might interpret things the wrong way. So one of the founders of Consensus put it best. Their purpose is to democratize expert knowledge. Make that available to people who normally wouldn't have access to it. I think they do a great job here by being able to synthesize information into bite-sized little bits of information that can actually be used to make decisions. So I do want to put one warning out there though. This should not be a replacement for learning how to read and understand literature. Everything that we do in medicine is based off of what is clinically proven or supported by a lot of these trials and studies that have been done. And it is critical that you understand how to evaluate a paper break down the data and then be able to make clinical judgments based off of that information for the benefit of your patients. So that is my only real caveat there. This should not be a replacement for that skill. It should be something to be used in addition to. But I do think it does have some application for helping people who maybe aren't trained in that way to be able to start viewing this information the same way that we do. All right, guys, I promised you a giveaway, so here's what you need to know. We're giving away several premium subscriptions to Consensus. This is something that we thoroughly enjoyed using on the AnKing team, and we want to make sure that you guys, our supporters, get access to something as cool as this. So all you need to do to enter the giveaway is to like this video and leave a comment below. If you do those things, then we'll use our social media accounts to do a random drawing and then get in contact with you guys to give you guys that premium access. All right, to wrap things up, let's just do one more search. Will using AnKing improve my life? These studies suggest that using AnKing can improve academic performance, knowledge retention, and sleep quality. There you go, guys. AnKing is beneficial for your health right there. Anyway, it's just a silly search, but honestly, we just want to remind you guys that you're important. You need to take care of yourselves as well. Do yourself a favor, get those review cards done early, do some practice questions, and then get outside. Touch some grass and make sure you spend some time with the people you love. Thanks for joining me today. Till next time.
Thanks for learning with the AnKing. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, as well as follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Patreon. That is @AnKingMed. Also, feel free to reach out via email or check out our website, ankingmed.com, for more tips and tricks.